bringing through fast raps and critical state.
Good morning, citizen. Colonel Hector Bravado back here again from Breakup Gaming Society with the third and final look at Broderick Worr, the Commissar commander from Warhammer 40,000 Conquest, aka best game ever. In the first couple of videos, I gave you an overlook at sort of what Worr's general deal was. In part 2, we took a look at the entire deck. Put that sucker out on the table and sort of broke down all the components and the rationale behind the build. So in this part, we're going to tell you how this thing might actually play in the real world. And this is one of the things I would do when I was sort of testing a deck. So what I did is I set up an initial flop of 5 planets. Here we have Atrox Prime, Barlas, Planum, Iridial, and Ossus 4. And then I randomly determined that I have the initiative marker, which is important because it means on planets 1, 3, and 5, I would have initiative. That would mean first choice of actions, first attack most likely, which is good. So what I did was I dealt myself a hand of 7 cards, gave myself the Warlord's starting 7 resources, which is the quote-unquote money you need to deploy things and get stuff done. And here's what I decided to do. Now, normally, having that eagle marker means you have a good chance of, striking first and taking that first planet. But when I looked at this flop, I didn't want to. Why? Because one, Worr's specialty is going hard on planets with green objectives, such as that little military strong point there. 2, this is a really good flop for me if I wanted to play a late game based on what I had in my hand. Because look at this. If my opponent overruns that planet and that planet, which, by the way, I'm not sold on giving up, but it's okay if they get it. They have what we used to call a grab bag. Look at that. They have 1 of each kind of symbol, but no double ups, keeping in mind that you need 3 matching symbols of captured planets to win a game. So here's what I decided to do with the money and cards I had. On planet 3, Planum, I paid 2 resources to install one of my anxious infantry platoons. They'll be all right there just by virtue of Worr's ability. They have a +1 attack buff right there, so that unit's now a 4/3. Then further down the line, look at this. There's 3 green planets in a row, meaning if I can just stock up cheap, tough fighters here, the idea is that by the time my opponent gets to the mid-later run of these planets, I'll be able to just wear them down, set up, grind them down to dust. The Catachan Tracker, kind of an expensive specialist unit. I didn't have a lot of good economy units in the hand, but I spent 3 resources to deploy him just the same. Again, he's at a green planet, so he gets a +1 attack buff. It turns him into a 3 attack, 3 defense. Not bad. And I also drew my clear-cut refuge, which I probably would have opened with, just a stall. That would have cost, as you see in that little 1 in the upper corner, 1 resource to deploy. So that's 6 resources I spent, keeping 1 resource in reserve. And of course, if anybody comes to try to mess with my dudes, Clear-Cut Refuge says I can tap that, and because my greatest cost unit is a 3, either of these dudes could get 3 extra hit points. So I could, if I need to, turn either of these folks into a 4/6 or a 3/6, which is a lot to tangle with early in the game. That would only leave the question of where to send Worr with my command wheel. This is one of the best parts of the game. After you deployed all your regular units, You use this little wheel in secret to determine where you're going to send your warlord, and then boom, you each flip and decide, now, my opponent might see this coming, but if I were able, for example, to send war to that last planet, maybe harvest 2 resources in a command struggle, if nobody shows up to stop me there, well, look at what's in my hand. I can put out that Sacalum's Finest at a green planet for free if I win the battle. That would be a huge deal. I've got some Death Corps engineers in reserve, another little specialist unit, not so special in and of themselves, but if your enemy has some certain kind of support in their HQ, these cats will rush it and sap it. And I've got an attachment. That's a dozer blade. That's not going to be worth any much to me until I draw into one of my Steel Legion Chimeras. But in the meantime, it at least has a shield to block damage. And one of the special Apoca designed Adeptus Sororitas events. This lets me, if they spring units on me at a planet, basically you can exhaust that and start bolstering your people. You can put faith tokens around representing the value of the unit they brought into play. And if that doesn't work, it's a 2 shield. Very good. There you go. That's how, barring, of course, any actual knowledge of what a real live opponent would do, how I would deploy war this hand. That's it for our look at the Commissar deck, Broderick Worr. I got dozens of decks, so next time we're going to take a look at a different faction, a different build, and a different flavor. Until then, may you fight long and well.